Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. A few years ago, we had a news announcement that there was a replication of an old Spanish ship parked out. Oh, where was that parked, Robin? Do you remember? Or docked, I should say, not parked. Where was it?
One was in St. Petersburg, and one was up in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and there was a tall sail ship. They didn't call it a pirate ship, but I called it a pirate ship.
Yeah,
looked like a pirate ship.
The tall ships they're called.
Yeah, and so we went to this exhibit, and part of the exhibit was, in addition to learning about the ship, which now I can't remember where it was parked. I feel it might have been like Cape Canaveral or something, somewhere over there. But they also had this maps on display, and the maps were replications also of the maps that were drawn by the early explorers. And while they were wrong, they were so close to being right. And I remember thinking, wow, I could never do this. I could never like walk around and say, well, here's this little inlet on a state. I'm talking, maybe I could do it in my house. Mm-hmm. But I mean, could you imagine doing it the entire continent?
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, just looking at what they got right and wrong about Florida was amazing. How much they got right. So maps are a very interesting science or study. And there is a book that's going to blow you away. It is published by National Geographic, so you already know this is a top quality book. It is written and put together by Greg Miller and Betsy Mason. And Greg Miller is on the phone with us right now. He's an award-winning writer, a science and tech journalist, and he's going to talk to us about the book. It's called All Over the Map, A Cartographic Odyssey. Greg, this is an amazing book you guys have put together. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm opposite end of the country, up in Portland, Oregon.
See, and that's always like my first question. And the only reason I can even visualize that is because of a map. Think about that.
That's right. You've got a map in your head right there.
I do. I'm pretty good with America. I'm not that good with Asia. and I'm so with Europe. Do you know one of the maps that kind of blew me away? Can I tell you? It was the map of New York that showed the tourists uploading photos to Flickr versus the locals who uploaded photos to Flickr. That was amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a neat example, I think, of how cartography is flourishing today. That's one of the things we tried to do in the book is capture the richness of the history of cartography back from some of the first maps, like you were talking about. And up to like modern maps that are made with data from tourists uploading their pictures to Flickr.
Are you a cartographer?
I am not. Nope. I'm a journalist, and I've just kind of always had a thing for maps since I was a little kid. So
the science that enabled a cartographer back in the Explorer days, I guess, before we had satellites and bird's eye views, that's just an amazing thing. And are they still put together the same way, or is it just not even necessary anymore?
Yeah, I think to a large extent it's not necessary anymore to go to the great lengths that people went to map the world 500 years ago. Satellites have really kind of resolved a lot of those unanswered questions for us.
It's a testament to us, to humanity, though, I guess you might say, that they could even do that. They have the science and the understanding of things to do that. Compasses and what's that tool called that they use to find where they are? What is that tool called?
Oh, they've got a bunch of tools.
It's a straight. It's like it's like a handheld thing. It's got a straight line and a.
Oh, I can't recall. Your book is very historical, and it also goes into the realm of imagination. I mean, gosh, you've got the Star Wars Death Star plans in there, and you've got a section about goddesses, which I found fascinating.
Yeah. I think that's one of the really cool things about maps is the way they kind of allow us to imagine a place that we haven't seen, or maybe even a world that doesn't really exist.
So in order to do the book, as a journalist, there must have been an immense amount of research that you did. How did you begin? Where did you go to get the research questions answered?
Yeah, so Betsy and I worked together on this from the beginning. We, about 6 or 7 years ago, started a blog at Wired. It's now at National Geographic, where we interview cartographers and historians, curators of map collections, map collectors, basically anybody who would take the time to share their expertise with us. And so the book really came out of that because we just had more stories than we could ever do on the blog. So the book was another a vehicle, another medium for some of those stories.
And you also cover maps that were made for the Soviet Army during the Cold War.
Yeah, those are, I think, some of the most fascinating ones to me. I'm a child of the Cold War myself, and the days of mutually assured destruction. And so when I first saw those maps with my hometown labeled in Cyrillic text, it was kind of like seeing it through the eyes of the enemy a little bit.
So we use maps, the average everyday American uses maps just to figure out how to take a vacation or how to get from point A to point B. Some of the maps in here, I wondered about their use. And one of them is the one about the volcanic lava from Mount Vesuvius. Mm-hmm. That's an amazing map, but how was that used? Or who would use that?
So that's a geological map, and Betsy, my co-author, is a geologist by training, and so she's the one who should really be answering this question. But I think it's just to understand the geology of how the volcano works and all the different eruptions over the years, which is something that's still even today in Hawaii. There's the volcano that's erupting on the Big Island, and you see similar maps that show all of the past lava flows and trying to understand how the volcano works and maybe predict where the next flow is going to go.
An exact map from, let's say, the 1800s, just land-wise, not population, not a political map, but an exact map of the land would look different than today, wouldn't it? I mean, the land masses have changed somewhat.
The land masses have changed a little and continue to evolve. There are probably bigger changes that have happened in terms of the political boundaries in a lot of parts of the world. But
well, like Lower Manhattan, for example, I always heard was more narrow than it is now.
Yeah, and I think even the recent what was the huge Sandy, the huge storm that was there, kind of reshaped some of that coastline. And here in Florida there's a barrier island that's called an island, but it isn't an island. And when we went there one day, the tour guide explained why it's not an island, because a hurricane blew sand into that little gap and it became part of the isthmus. Not the, what do you call that thing? A peninsula. Whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You go through the different human experiences. I mean, gosh, you touch on Prohibition. You go to the gangs of Chicago in the 1920s. You are totally all-encompassing in this.
Yeah. We really our focus. We didn't try to be comprehensive in any way. We were just looking for interesting maps that would catch people's eye and had a good story behind them.
All right, explain the map showing the Isle of Pleasure. This is explain that one to me.
I really need to explain.
What the heck is that one?
Right.
You're a man.
This is from the little story we have on Prohibition and how people on both sides of the debate, the temperance debate in the United States in the 1800s and early 1900s, used maps to try to make their point. And so people on the Prohibition side would document all the saloons in New York City and write these screeds about what a terrible, terrible thing that was. And people on the other side would make these kind of satirical maps, like the one you're talking about, that has all kinds of colorful, things that sort of celebrate the joys of booze.
It's a map of the state of inebriation, by the way.
There you go.
You guys have done an outstanding job. My gosh, you need. How long did this take you?
It took us a couple of years to do the book, but we've been writing about maps for much longer than that. So it's kind of culmination of all of it.
So I found it on Amazon, and let me tell the listeners, this is a $50 book. I have a copy of it. I'd like to give it away. If I have one person who wants it, it's an amazing, really heavy, really amazing book. Call me. I'll leave it here for you. The rest of us have to go buy it. I think it was a little cheaper on Amazon than $50. Let me see. It's $31 on Amazon, but it's $50 on the list there. Do you have a website other than Amazon? Is it nationalgeographic.com?
Yeah, that's it. And then the blog that Betsy and I write is also called All Over the Map. So if you Google All Over the Map, National Geographic, you should find us.
Oh, okay, excellent. Let me give the book away. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
Hi, Carol Weaver.
Carol,
how you doing?
Good, Carol. You got the book. It'll be waiting for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you for being on the show with us today. I love the book. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. My pleasure.
All right, we'll be right back.
Friends, countrymen, tourists, and Ocalans, lend me your ears. Hey, speaking of ears, there is an opportunity for you to help feed and provide good maintenance, housing, and medical care for Marion County's rescued big cats, bears, monkeys, and other disabled or unreleasable wild and exotic animals. Take a tour on Wednesdays or Saturdays of the Endangered Animal Rescue Sanctuary. Call 352-266-2859. The Endangered Animal Rescue Sanctuary is affectionately known as